Sorry for our technical difficulties, but I'll maybe shorten up my front piece here a little bit. But I'll send it over to the OpenGov team to kind of share around their team members and take you through the presentations and to kind of the meat of what we're looking to do here. I'd say, you know, directionally for the organization, this is a kind of a really important step, I think, for moving Ellsworth forward to make city government more modern, efficient, economical, and in many ways structurally more secure, as we have growing pressures and needs on the citizenry, and on city government, but we don't really have systems that kind of meet those needs. And I know the big sort of policy prescriptions over the last year that we pursued that were kind of mission critical was ordinance reforms, making those most in line with state regulations, but also making them as business friendly as possible. Some tax increment financing, district reforms, so we can also add some credit enhancement agreements and some business friendliness to kind of expand the tax base, and then our capital improvement 1, 5, and 10-year planning initiative. All the fruits of the kind of work we did last year in February, March to kind of set those projects up are going to start to come to fruition soon over the next January, February, March. And so the next big thing that we want to start working on is a digital modernization effort across the last major pieces of city government that have yet to really start utilizing digital systems. I sort of talk about this as bringing the city of Ellsworth into the 21st century. You know, we're about 25 years it took to get us here. But you know, I've been really surprised since my arrival as city manager on just how many systems are still based in like paper processes, or worse, you know, that aren't even paper processes or in binders, but they're just kind of the knowledge that's in between somebody's ears. And when they walk out the door, which the year before I arrived, the organization had about 20% turnover. My first year, about 15. We're tracking towards 10 now. You know, these governments have a lot more turnover than the days when, you know, the city clerk would be here for 25, 30 years, or the public works director would be there for 30 years. And you could kind of run a smaller city or town with, you know, just what was their knowledge base and then pass it on to one person. But we're just in such a different environment now that it feels like we have to reinvent the wheel over and over and over again. It makes us less efficient. It costs us money. We just had an issue recently where a bucket truck wasn't inspected, and we had to rent a bucket truck that we bought last year because we don't have a system to like trigger when these inspections should happen. So that was $750 in taxpayer money that didn't have to be spent if we had a digital system that would have triggered that already. So I'll send it over to the OpenGov team. I know we have Patrick Lyons, our city council chair, on the line with us. We did a meeting with some other city staff and city councilors on Monday, which we posted online as well. So it's kind of a rehash of that. But with that, I'll send it over to the OpenGov team.
Hey, thank you for the introduction, Charlie and Patrick. It's a pleasure to formally meet you as the council city chair here for the city of Ellsworth. We're excited to be here. We were excited, Monday night to kick things off with the city council, where we had a presentation of our asset management, procurement, contract management, and grants management solution. So I know we had some technical difficulties in the beginning here. Just wanted to share, a quick couple slides to kind of set the stage of who OpenGov is as a company. And then we'll kick it over to a few different colleagues of mine on the team to kind of give you a brief overview of each of the solutions that we're going to discuss today. So like I said, excited to be here. Let me share my screen here. I'll run through just a couple slides, but we'll kind of cut short again to the meat of the agenda as we have a jam-packed schedule here for the folks. So who OpenGov is? So OpenGov is a full ERP public service platform, as Charlie alluded to, a digitized system where all of our systems come together. So what we see here on the screen here is the ecosystem of who OpenGov is. You're starting with the core of financial management, and then you see around the financial management solution, pieces of our different components. One thing to highlight here as we explore these solutions today is all of our solutions are first-in-class standalone solutions, meaning they do not need each other to operate. However, when you start introducing multiple OpenGov solutions, on the screen here as we're seeing, whether it be the asset management solution, procurements and contract management, you're going to start seeing a fully digitized, integrated system that communicates with one another simultaneously. It is driven with AI, technology as well recently. We just have that ability to really interact and drive success for the city of Ellsworth. And then obviously, we started conversations with the city a few months ago. These are some of the priorities that brought us into the conversation, and things that we are really trying to drive home, in the discussion today. Some of the strategic priorities are centralizing your systems, trying to get rid of multiple different systems within the organization, and having one system of truth that, like we said, interacts fully with one another. Strengthening the infrastructure and capital planning projects, using the asset management tool to have the ability to know what assets you have, what conditions they're in, the lifespan and life cycle of those assets, and then you're better planning for 5-10 year capital projects, as you look forward in your budgeting in your capital standpoints. Any questions there so far? I know we're just trying to go quickly here before we get into the meat of it, but just wanted to highlight there. One question I do have for you, Patrick, as the city council chair, is what are some of the priorities in your role in digitizing systems today?
Well, I think they support each other. It's making the city operate more efficiently and accurately, right? So being able to track all this, knowing where we're at, cuts down on costs, as Charlie alluded to. And then it also makes the city more efficient and make sure we don't miss things. So I like you're saving money while also, and then the transparency as well. This is all digitized; it's all available for review. So I think there, just to clarify, in that whole suite of kind of governmental services, is sort of like a la carte. We could pick what we need, what helps us, and then if we were to in the future want to add others, we could. Is that how it's designed?
Absolutely. So some communities, adopt one solution to start. Some do 3. Some do the whole, suite at once. But you have that ability to have, fully modernized systems that interact, by themselves, but also integrate with one another. So yeah, as the city grows with OpenGov and digitizing systems, I know you start looking at maybe we need a financial management system, maybe we need a budgeting performance system. Let's look at what we already have in place with OpenGov and start really growing that really integrated system of truth for transparency purposes.
Great. Well, I would say Charlie and I are pretty lockstep, and I think how we want like the first step here in integrating OpenGov. So the priorities that you listed on the slide we were just talking about align with mine, and yeah, so that all sounds great to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I could see down the line some other integrations, obviously depending on how these ones go. Capital improvement planning, we're doing that process, but we don't really have a system to kind of keep tracking all of our capital projects. I know that's a integration in the future that might look towards too, but the ones, we've been working probably 3 or 4 months analyzing not just OpenGov, but a bunch of potential solutions to help in this digital piece. OpenGov was really the most robust and kind of holistic solution here. It feels like, and also just for what needs the most needs now. The capital improvement area I could see being a next big step for us, but the pieces we've chosen here are really just, are in desperate need of digital integrations.
Absolutely. So with that, what we'll do is we'll jump into the demonstrations. There'll be about 15 minutes each. We're going to start with the asset management solution, which my colleague Jim will run. Just looking at assets, what condition they're in, et cetera. And then we'll go into grants management and finally wrap up with procurement. As we do this today, you'll see how the system really works together, understanding what assets we are, what condition we're in. Maybe the city goes out, receives a grant to get some of these systems updated and upgraded, and then we'll ultimately finish with the procurement piece. How do we go out and actually procure those pieces? So without further ado, I'm going to kick it over to my colleague Jim for the asset management demonstration.
Thanks, Kevin. I'll share and just kind of verify everybody's seeing a map and some park boundaries. All right. Sorry, Patrick. I don't know what is going on with my camera, but it said it's not working. I said, well, I know it's not working. So apologize that you can't see my face, but my role is as solution engineer here. I'll show you the work and asset management side. So what you're taking a look at right now is a map. And what I've just have on the map is what is our planned work activities for the city? And then also show me our parks and those park boundaries. So on the map on the right-hand side, I said, I want to see all our planned tasks. We've got 29 of those. I want to see also the asset information. In this case, I've got our parks turned on, and we'll talk about water distribution here in a second. But on that map and in the grid below here, here's that to-do list. So what is it that we have to do? And can we manipulate that to-do list and say, I want to sort it by priority? So you'll see like this little 2 here with an arrow saying, yep, I want to sort it by priority and estimated start date. So what is the most recent work that we have to do? And what's the ones that are the highest priority? That'll allow the folks to, again, hey, what do I need to take care of? Or they can do it by proximity, or they can even do a custom sort to say, how do I want my workday to look? And what is the most efficient and effective way for me to get my work done? I don't want to be zigzagging across from park to park or water valve or water main to water main or whatever it may be across the city. I want to, take care of the high priority work, take care of that, make sure it gets done. If I have time left in the day, I'll take care of my low, hanging fruit or my low priority. If I don't get that done, it automatically carries over in tomorrow. So I don't have that fall through the cracks or lose that work either. Work can always be reassigned if somebody goes on vacation, things like that. So before we jump into a work task, I'll just give you an example of some asset information. So as I select this park, it will bring up that park information. And if I expand that all the way across, it will tell you, hey, what have we spent at that park to date? And we can see up in the corner here that we spent $125,000 doing work and maintenance to that park. Well, what was that work that we did? So you can click on the task area and it'll give you that grid and that list of work, again, that you can manipulate, sort, turn fields on and off to say, what was the work that we did and who did that work and what did that cost us? So all work will roll up into that to date, but you can manipulate to say, what have we spent this year? Or do we have a budget and how's that pulling from the budget? What do we have remaining?
The cost tracking, is that something that has to be entered in manually, or does it integrate with other systems? If we aren't using, just a question there.
Yeah, so a good example, I'll just answer it with, hey, we're going to go out and remove these barricades. Maybe we had a special event and we put up the barricades and blocked off a section of the park. Maybe we had movie night in the park or something like that. They can come in and click on that task, whoever's assigned to it, supervisor or a staff person, and say, yep, I went out and picked up those barricades. And all they have to do is say, hit save and complete at the bottom, put in some notes. Maybe you want a picture, for certain tasks. But like you said, if you want them to put in that level of effort, I'll call it, it does manually in a certain way, and the fact that it will drop that person in, it will put in their standard rate. All they have to do is say, hey, by the time I ran out there and back, it took me an hour to pick up those barricades. And that's all they have to do. So one click, pretty efficient. Now you've got who did the work, the amount of time that was involved, and then the labor cost as well. And so if you want, I can go through the rest of it, but it's the same thing. Hey, what equipment did you use? When I select equipment, I've got some stars over here. That just pops up that equipment to the top of the list. Either I use my Chevy half-ton truck or my Ford, or depending on what I'm doing, I might use this dump truck. But again, that allows them from their phone or tablet to say, yeah, I used the Chevy truck this time. I use that as a standard rate, and I use that for an hour as well. So now you've got labor, equipment cost. Same thing for materials. If you use some materials in this, you could add that in. If a contractor did some of this work, you could add that in too. So you're trying to get a true picture of what it actually took to do that work task. This one's pretty simple with a barricade removal. But as we talk about water main repairs or water main break or larger scaled events in the parks, being able to see that information, who did the work and what were the costs involved.
Great, thank you.
Good. And then same thing here, if I expand that work task open, it's going to say, what was the estimate? We estimated $1,100 to pick up the barricades. We might want to work on that. But we actually spent $85 picking up those barricades. What was that based on? There's that hour worth of labor that we put in. There's the labor cost. Here's the equipment cost. And if you ever want to see more detail on it as to who did the work, we can see that Jim did it, spent an hour at a standard rate of $45 an hour. Hey, what equipment did he use? Oh, he used that truck. If you want to see more detail on that, you can see that, hey, we used that truck for an hour. Here's the ID of the truck. And then you can even go in and manipulate those fields that are displaying and say, I want some more information in that grid. So I'm going to check a couple more fields on. Back on the park itself, if you want to see not only the park boundaries, so as I told Charlie, hey, you can start easy. You can start what we call a crawl, walk, run approach. And you can define that park boundary and you can start doing your mowing activities and your restroom facilities and your park structures and doing a re-roof and things like that. You can do that all against the park, and that'll roll up that cost to that park and establish a condition for that park. If you want to go a little bit further, now you can come in and say, I want to see all the assets or all the things that are contained within the park. So I want to see the trees and the trails and the park benches, the athletic spaces. And so you can get to that level of detail to say, hey, what do we have? What is it? And what kind of condition is it in? What have we done for maintenance on that particular item? And then that all rolls up into the park for cost and condition as well. So it's just, start simple, get some results, and then you can migrate into more and more detail, depending on what you want, what you need for information at the end of the month or end of the year, what you need for be able to plan, be able to budget for, and so on.
So did I hear, maybe you're getting to this, but assets can be anything, including like sewer, water, utilities, and things of that nature.
Yep, exactly. So depending on what that person's role is or what they want to see, they can come down here and say, I want to see all the water mains. I want to see the playground equipment inside the park. I want to see all our water hydrants. So now they can see all that information, and now they can classify that for whatever attribute that you have in the system. I want to see all the Miller hydrants. I want to see all the ones that are over 30 years old. I want to see all the ones that are this condition state. Show me the ones that we've done more than 5 maintenance activities to. Show me which ones open clockwise by 6 turns. I'm getting a little off, on my tangent there. But all that information, or by pressure flow, or maybe the fire hydrant wants to know that it's a good operating hydrant and that it's in service and it's not out, or that it produces 1,500 gallons a minute, but this one only produces 500 gallons a minute. So really the possibilities are endless, but you're correct, Patrick, that assets could be anything, could be valves, hydrants, mains, sidewalks, parks, trees, monuments. And I'll stop there. I think you get that.
And I'd also say, Patrick, we did meet with OpenGov and like the chief. That was one of our first on the water distribution system side of things. And he was saying how this can kind of integrate with, I think, Esri maps that they use for their pieces. And like the fire department can go out and like know what the pressure of the lines they're about to go to a fire on. Right now that's just a paper map sitting in a water department, pretty far away. Or like when we had those 6 hydrants out, right? We had those bad news stories about why it's taken so long, and it was just it was news to me in some ways too. Like, wow, how many hydrants are out? Like, what's our process for handling the hydrants being out? Well, they get like kind of a donut put on them, and there's not really a time frame for it. And something like this, the fire department or the water department can notify that, or a counselor or somebody, hey, this is out. We put it on there, we flag it, it creates a work order that has like an escalatory clause too. So, if it doesn't get handled in 3 weeks like it's supposed to, it can get automatically gets kicked up to the deputy city manager. If it's 4 weeks, it goes to the city manager. And like in forever, we don't worry about how the water fire hydrants get fixed. Like we have a system that makes them fixed in perpetuity. So it's just one of the many or I would say also with OpenGov, it's been like my favorite meetings. I've gone through each of the asset pieces because it's been teaching me, and I think will help teach our teams, like, oh, these are how modern systems are work. Like this is a enterprise solution, but it's purpose built for government, that we're not trying to build something ourselves. Like it's like, oh, like clearly these people have worked with a lot of cities and towns. Like we should do that. We should do that. I think that's come up over and over and over again when we do these demonstrations.
Yeah, just as a kind of a quick further example, I just turned on and said, hey, show me all the water lines that we have, but show me all the ones that we've had more than 3 breaks on, and show me those in red. So you can quickly identify those and see those, and then be able to click on any of them and say, hey, on that particular water main, where's that located? What kind of condition is it in? What's all the attributes for it? So it's a US pipe, it's 78 feet in length. When did we put it in the ground? Back in 1979. What's the risk of failure for it? What's the probability of failure? Have we inspected it? Yep. What was in condition when we inspected it back in 79? What is today's estimated condition? And then what is that maintenance task that we did? Well, we did an inspection, and then we can go in and look at that and see, who did the inspection, how was it rated, what kind of condition it was in, and so on.
And I know for our systems, Pat, like for a couple times, just they go out, they bring equipment for it's labeled as this. They go in there, dig up the area to fix a 6-inch pipe, and it's a 3-inch pipe. And their equipment they brought was the wrong stuff. So they got to fill back in the hole and come back to it. That's like that cost savings, that efficiency savings. And also, over the long term, like how does that get annotated? Right now, there really isn't a great process for that. But with a system like this, if that ever happened again, put it in there, note it, readjust kind of what the actual pipe is, what the conditions that it's happened, and we can start to just get a better system itself.
And we try to make it easy for them, Patrick. Like I said, we've been doing this for a lot of years. And so on that example, just as a quick one, if I were to come into the water mains and say, I want to set some criteria to it, and that criteria, I can scroll down or I can type in the diameter, and you could come in and say, show me all the pipes that we have that is equal to or greater than or less than a certain diameter. And we'll see if we've got any 6-inch lines. And we don't. So let's do a.
And just a question as you do this information, some of it we would have to populate ourselves as far as categories, but is there a lot of like base categorization and information that comes in with the program? So, with your experience with municipalities about these different types of infrastructure and assets.
Yeah, so everything I'm showing you is right out of the box. So when I went, as maybe a quick example, when I went to that water main and said, show me all the mains that we have that are less than 8-inch, we've got 687 segments that are that. But when I selected that and said, what is the fields that I can select? This is all out of the box for either a record set or the diameter, the estimated condition, the ID of it, the install date, the length, the manufacturer, the material it's made out of. Those are all standard fields right out of the box.
And can the city, if it wants to create its own fields for different types of information, add that?
Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, so if I don't get anything else across this afternoon, it's the system's very, very, very configurable to adapt to how you do work and what your processes are. Not, I used to say years ago, not our programmers sitting in a basement in the dark saying, well, this is how they should use it. No, we built tools in to make it efficient, make you effective, make you accountable, but make the system your own and work for you, not you having to work against how the system's laid out.
Great.
I would note that this one, there's a in the contracting, which is through I think I've sent along to you, Patrick, and the rest of the council. on what the service agreements are, but it's more in the first year. Like it's around for all of the suite of systems. It's like I think around 65,000 per year, but in the initial year one, it's like 170,000. A lot of that reason is for the professional services to get these systems up and running. There's some that are easier, like procurement, grants management, contracting. Like that'll be a quicker. Like okay, we train on it. Let's every new grant, every new procurement we do. This one, like our water distribution system, the public works systems, like that's going to be a little bit, a lot more training, GIS mapping, getting everything into the grid. I think on the front end is going to be the real heavy lift. And then when we're using the system, that's when like the huge efficiencies start coming in. So.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of finish, Patrick, because I could go on for hours, but I won't do that to you. But as I jump into some things that maybe you might be concerned with is on the dashboard, you might have your own dashboard to see what I'll call like trends. So even we can manage requests, we can manage what your inventory is, obviously your staff, what materials you have on hand and so on. But in this case, you might have a bar graph of showing, hey, how many requests have we received month by month? And why did it trend up in the summer? Well, I'm going to attribute that to because we have more people using our parks during the summer, so we're getting more requests because of that. But there might be goals that you're trying to hit. If we talk to the fire marshal and said, hey, we want to exercise half our hydrants and make sure they're working every year because we're on a 2-year rotation, they could set up a key performance indicator and let them know just by doing their work and by exercising those hydrants, where they at, in the year. We have a goal of doing 420 of them. We've got 377 done, so we're 90% of the goal. We got a couple of weeks left in the year. We better pick up that last 50. But
And that one's a big pain point. I don't know if you could just show kind of how the staffing assignments too works. I'd love Patrick just going to see that. I know you had like the Ron Swansons and the folks. Just I'd love to see that really quick before we move to the next one. But that hydrant one is really present. I know when we had the hydrant issue over the summer, I was kind of like, what is our testing regimen? And we're supposed to be, I think, on a 3-year cycle, but we didn't even seem to have like a uniform Excel sheet yet on all of them and how they get tracked and what the water department had one and the fire department had one. And so we're starting to work on this uniform spell spreadsheet. But that, when the people here, that's not a permanent solution. You build something like this, you put in like the requirements on these testing on these hydrants, what they got tested at, what their pressure was when they were tested, any issues that were there. Then it's just done like that forever. It's kind of human proof from that point forward.
yeah, so Charlie, I think you were talking about the screen here and being able to see a schedule and a calendar of what the workload is. So if we come in and say by labor, here's our Ron Swanson and what does he have for estimated work time this week? Is this what you were getting at?
Yeah, exactly. Yep. I'm not seeing that on my screen. I think I'm still seeing the pie.
Okay.
You're saying the right things. It's the visual that's.
You might just shared one screen, Jim. Might just share one.
That's the way Teams is working. So let's do this. And how about now?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah, this is super helpful. So I think for our managers, and you're looking out for weeks, months ahead, what kind of teams, how long you're going to need them on. Like this is just, how long it takes to do something. An emergency happens and you need to pull some people off there when these are on like, phones or tablets, depending what the crews would want. You can get an immediate notification for everybody. Assignments go out. You go to that water main break. It's not like 7 different calls, hoping you're getting this, that, and the other thing. But yeah, this is one of the other big pieces on how we manage our manpower.
Yeah, this might be more for like a supervisor or a department head, Patrick, but hey, what do we have going on for the week? What does our staff have for assignments? Ron's got 45 hours. He's got 14 hours worth of work just on Tuesday. We'll jump up to Wednesday here and see that he's got 17 hours worth of work. So can we move that work out and maybe change it to a different day and push that out to a Friday and reorganize that workload? Or if Ron went home sick, can we move it to somebody else? So those types of things. And again, kind of streamlining that process for those supervisors, be able to see what the workload is and then rebalance that.
And I also think
I would never go home sick. by the way.
I'm hoping the teams too. That's like, what this allows us to kind of gamify the system. Both, if our crews are out there and they see something wrong, it's like we really need to address that. Pull it up, add it to the workflow. Like we can, especially with these types of groups, it's just a massive prioritization exercise. Like there is no amount of labor manpower unless we hired 500 people in this department for the next 4 years. Are we going to get ahead of all the deferred maintenance in roads in the city of Ellsworth? I think the street scan analysis of all our roads is like we have $50 million is how much it would cost to get them all up to snuff. So there is like not, it's just, and it's really just like what's most pressing, what's the stuff we have to do how do we open things up? How do we close them down? And as our crews are out there, noticing things, they'll have a system that they can put it in. And like we'll get to it eventually. We'll keep tracking these things. So
absolutely, I think it's a good call. Just planning with an enterprise-wide system. Seeing that highway department is looking to pave, Main Street in several months, and water department needs to replace water lines. Well, let's make sure these projects can get done together. And we're not ripping up brand new pavement. But any last minute questions from the team or Patrick on asset management before we move on? I know, like Jim said, there's hours that we could talk about it because just a very exciting in-depth system, but we want to be obviously respectful of time as well.
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. The only other question I have before we move on to is, do we have a hard stop at 3:00? I know we kind of had some issues in the beginning. We're coming up on about 2:45 now. Is it okay if we go a little past 3?
I've got an extra 10. I don't know about you, Patrick.
Yeah, I can go to 3:10. That'd be great.
Okay. So what we'll do here is we'll kick it over to Adam, who will quickly run through grants, and then we'll save some time at the end for Morgan to run through the procurement side of things. But we won't take up any more time. Adam, the floor is yours.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Kevin. Patrick, good to meet you. Glad to be here. My name is Adam Corby. I'm a solutions engineer, just like Jim and Morgan here. I'm going to do a grants management speed round similar to what I did on Monday evening, Charlie. But I will hit the high points and make sure that we all understand what's going on and answer any questions. So switching gears away from the asset management, talking a little bit about the grants management tool. The idea behind this tool at a high level is how can we organize and stay on top of our grants management process when it comes to, reaching out, applying for funds, getting grant funding, and then keeping up with the compliance, making sure that the expenses, the reimbursements, the things associated with these grants are tracked appropriately, and that we're maximizing the amount of dollars coming into the community and minimizing any audit risk or risk of losing potential funding. So the idea, again, to Jim's point on the asset management side, it's a very configurable tool. So everything I'm going through, you can see this dashboard that has, what grants are in progress, how much have we budgeted, how much have we spent against these grants, and then these charts and diagrams. All of this can be changed to reflect the data that you want to show. I always like to call that out, but the general way that we lay this application out is left to right, pre-award, award, and post-award process. So the pre-award meaning, how do we search for new funding opportunities, right? Can we bring in data sources? Can we keep up with the application process? The award process being, okay, we've been approved for a grant. How do we manage that process? Do any compliance tasks? Track the spend against the award amount, those types of things. And then the post-award process, which has to do with any last-minute compliance tasks, closeout activities, all those kind of things. So I'll quickly touch on each. Oh, that's weird. Well, now I'm having a snag. Bear with me, guys.
Whereas I'd say Patrick too on this one, like this, this is obviously a big one. Danielle has a ton of grants management experience when she was at Parks and Rec in New York City, and then when she was kind of managing a huge grant process for USDA regionally in New England. So she's sort of taken the lead on this piece. She loves this product, and it's something that we've had some issues with in the past when Northern Borders issued us $1 million grant, and like that was awesome for the new water treatment plant, but then they said we can't give you the grant until you catch up on 4 years of quarterly reporting that you were supposed to do that you never did. And so then now me and the teams are spending tons of new time and effort trying to like replicate previous reports for work that we weren't even involved with. Unfortunately, they let us kind of slide on that piece. But that's something that should just never happen in a modern organization. And if we have a system like this, like it won't let that lapse. Like the manager who was in charge of that grant in that process, like will know that not submitting the quarterly reports will be escalated to the city manager through the system. So
Yeah, good call out, Charlie. And he had mentioned that to me as well. And apologies on that. Someone's updating my demo environment and didn't tell me. But the show must go on. So talking a little bit about that pre-award process, right? This is an example for Connecticut, but just the idea here is, hey, we can bring in grant opportunities from different sources. We can present them to the team so they can actually search in here, go through what categories of grants am I looking for, maybe, search for different things, go view details. That would link me out to the actual source of this funding opportunity and decide what to pursue. Ultimately, we end up at a point where, hey, these are the grants that we're going to go after. And then we can have this centralized grant record that's going to track all of the things that are associated with this grant, right? So in this case, the federal safety grant, we can track, hey, where are we? Of course, we've been approved for this grant. And then we can scroll through and see any information tied to this funding opportunity. So dates, any key dates, reference numbers, things like that, grant amount, of course. And then down here, how do we track, compliance tasks associated with this grant, right? It's going to keep that audit record. So if you ever have to say, hey, yeah, I did this task, I completed it, it's not started, we can do those things. You can also, of the users in the system, you can create compliance tasks, you can assign them to different users. They can then get email notifications or something like that to say, hey, you have a new task assigned with this grant, go update this record. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the idea here is everybody is operating off of one single source of data, right? So this is the same database for everybody, and everybody's using it. That doesn't mean everybody has the same permissions. There is a pretty robust permissions engine in here, so that different folks from different departments may land on different dashboards when they log in. They may not have the access to delete or edit things, but they will have the access to do what they need to do, and then that's going to update the centralized record that everybody has access to, right? Touching a bit on the expenses piece, right? How are we tracking expenses against this grant, right? We can bring this in from a financial system so we can see, okay, looks like I have, these are all my expenses against this grant. We could then see the reimbursements piece as well. So if I want to create a reimbursement request, right, to get that funding back, how do we track the individual expenses against that reimbursement request? Hey, I've requested $265,000 back from this grant funding. That's summing up the total expenses that have gone against this grant, just to make sure that we're maximizing the amount of money that we're obligated to that fund because we've been approved for this grant. But now, we want to recoup that money that we've spent out of our own pocket. Quickly here, switching over to the award dashboard, right? So how do we maintain that process once we've been approved? I've kind of already bled into that. But the idea here is, hey, looking at a grants portfolio across at a high level, okay, where are we spending money? What budgets is it going into? The compliance due calendar, allowing us to take a look at critical dates to say, hey, when are these compliance tasks due? How do we make sure that we're not missing things aren't slipping through the cracks, and we don't, put further funding at risk from an agency, right? Because if you do miss one deadline with one grant, I've heard it's less likely to get funding from that same agency in the future. And then the same concept with the reimbursements here. And the last piece I'll touch on quickly is this post-award dashboard, right? The idea is, how do we compile final documentation? How do we run reports? This example is for the FFR report for federal grants, where we can actually populate looking at PDFs to say, okay, they require this format every time, this federal agency. We can auto-populate those based on fields that are in the system, right? So as things get edited, then we can create these PDFs, send them where they need to be sent. Of course, didn't map all the fields on this, but we could. I mapped a couple, where you can see the date filling in some of these numbers. So the idea here, again, is consolidating information, bringing different sources of data together so everybody's operating on the same page. That's pretty fast. Any questions on that, Patrick?
No, great. I think It makes sense to me, breaking it down award process and post. And then everyone's getting updates when there's these deadlines for reporting or what have you. And does it generate reports? Would it be able to be like, okay, here in 2020, FY 2026, we had X, grants, and they're broken down by, subject matter and agency and all that?
Yep, absolutely. So if I come here, you can see this reports tab. You'll have access to create reports and save those reports on any of the data that's residing in this system, right? So you could do, like spreadsheets. You can also do those charts and diagrams, calendars that we looked at before. And then you're able, if I go to edit one quickly, if I go to edit this report, I can say, hey, these are the the 5 columns that I want in this table. Here's the filters. I only want to see records that are under, this category, for example, or are after this date, for example. So you can basically filter down the report and then view it. If I look at grants to submit, come in here, you can see our 6 columns and then the information that we want to see. And all of these records are filtered based on those filter conditions we set. So you can save these, you can have them as a template, and then you can also apply these to dashboards for different users to log on and see.
And does the software work like if, you have a multiple municipal clients that all have been awarded a certain kind of grant, and they know that, and here's what the report's supposed to look like? Does it save that kind of formatting so you can generate the reports not just for internal reporting, but for submission to the grantors?
Yes. So you could do, either you could save like a spreadsheet type template like that would map to a rigid field, a rigid format, or the example I showed with the FFR, if you had like a PDF, this is an example of a very rigid PDF document that this agency requires. We can take the fields in the system and basically say, hey, this field goes on this box, this field goes on this box, and then auto generate these PDFs.
Great. That's really cool.
Awesome. Anything else?
No, thank you. That's exciting.
It's awesome.
Excellent.
Yeah, and obviously the grants piece, this is kind of in the audit category, audit finding a really important one. And this is the one that we do a better job here. This is more money in the taxpayer's pocket that they don't have to fund themselves. So really want to truly maximize this area, especially all of the project management team things, all the things in the comp plan, like, aligning all of that to our grant funding as kind of a standard operating business is going to be really helpful.
I think it's a great call, Charlie. And I think it just makes it for the city easier to go for grants. So it's going to make it more enticing for different departments to get involved, actually want to go for those grants, and obviously, bring more, funding back to the community, knowing that we don't have to try and fill out this paperwork ourselves. We're going to have a system that recognizes what needs to be filled out, where it needs to be filled out, and we can get through it pretty quickly here. So, if we don't have any other questions on grants, I know we got about 15 more minutes here. We're going to kick it over to Morgan, the solutions engineer, that's going to run us through procurement and contract management.
Great.
Amazing. Perfect. Thank you so much, team. Well, Patrick, it's a pleasure to meet you. Charlie and Nate, it's great to see you both again today. My name is Morgan Roberts. I also support our solutions engineering team alongside both Jim and Adam, specializing in our procurement and contract management solution. So really, I already know that we're about to be over time here, so don't want to take up too much more of your day. But really the biggest takeaway with procurement and contract management is that governments today are typically managing all of the opportunities for businesses to work with their organization with Microsoft Word, Excel sheets, files, which leads to many missed deadlines. It's really hard to avoid bid protests, things like that. So we created a tool where you can not only create all of your projects, manage all of your requests within the solution, but you can also move all the way through strategically sourcing and evaluating and contracting through the whole life cycle with that contractor. So within the solution, you have a limited amount of users as well. So anyone at the agency who needs to come in and collaborate on anything can be included. But I just wanted to show you an example of Portsmouth, New Hampshire's website. They're an OpenGov procurement customer. And once we go through implementation together, we'll work with Nate and your IT staff on how to advertise all the open opportunities for local communities and nationwide vendors to come in and say, hey, Ellsworth has XYZ opportunities available. Let's see if I'm qualified. So they can easily come in here and add dates to their personal work calendars so they're never accidentally missing anything. Also, this will lead to less calls overall for your agency and your administrative staff. But if I come in here and I open up one of these projects, you'll notice that I'm not even logged in. One thing that's very unique about OpenGov compared to the market is that we do not charge vendors. It's 100% free for them to not only come in here and view these opportunities, but it's 100% free for them to not only work with Ellsworths, but it's also 100% free for them to work with as many communities that they want at no cost. Because there's no barrier to entry of them working with you, we've seen drastic upticks in the competition that this has been driving for communities across the country, and also to help with reallocating and really budgeting taxpayer dollars most appropriately. So within the tool, we help you to design your summary, background, your timeline event for each and every project that toggles directly over into your project documents. So it's a very user-friendly experience. The businesses can come in here, sift through these tabs and see, hey, okay, this is the RFP. I can see the scope of work. I'm not having to download any massive, large PDF document that I know you've seen before. And it just makes things much more accessible for them to know exactly what they need to respond to. From this moment, they can come through and draft the response by at this point logging in. And the reasoning for this is because not only are we collecting questions and answers and publicly displaying addenda, but we ask them to log in because we also want to, on the flip side, internally, by the way, now I'm internally logged in for you all as staff, to see how are the businesses engaging with all of our opportunities. Should we invite a separate vendor list? Do we want to come in here and do some more strategic sourcing? You can come in and see how they're interacting, how they acknowledge the addenda, have they applied, are they doing no bids? What could we be doing better as a city with how we're writing these specs together overall? So we're giving you tools on the entire process when it comes to managing for your staff. And also just with answering any questions on from the portal that might be coming in that are transparent so everyone can see the same questions that are getting answered. And you can assign your subject matter experts, such as department heads, to actually answer these when they are the ones who should be, instead of it being via email and things like that. But on the flip side, we do also provide many different dashboards as well for your staff to come in here and know exactly where procurement is at. When it's our busy times of the year, we want to know in a visual lens, where are projects sitting? How many projects are in review? How many do we have pending? What's in evaluation phase? Your purchasing staff aren't needing to come in here and track the life cycle of these projects. OpenGov is doing it for you as you move along within the solution because, again, it's under one umbrella. It's also bringing to your attention, you come and start your day, you can come in here and easily say, hey, we have XYZ businesses. They asked these questions overnight. Let's come in here and start taking some action on these. Or maybe if you have a, really pressing project for the city and you have some evaluators who haven't completed their scoring yet, you can also come in here and engage with things like that as well. In addition to helping to keep your entire staff up to date with every key milestone and deadline in a mini 7-day look ahead into their week of procurement events, as well as this expanding to a monthly calendar view that will integrate with your work calendar. Again, once we go through implementation together as a team. This includes like bid proposal submission deadlines, Q&A deadlines, even everyone's favorite question is when are our staff's insurance is expiring. We're tracking all of that as well for you when it comes to contracting and sending reminders as well over to your businesses or your contractors that you're working with. We do this exact same process when it comes to contracting. So I know that this is a really big area of priority today for Ellsworth. So we do also provide you with dashboards and analytics for contracts. So how many contracts does Ellsworth has? Or actually, I just want to see how many contracts DPW has. I can come in here and sift through all of these dashboards by department to give me more data. Again, including like insurance is expiring. As you can see, that comes up a lot in all of my conversations on here. We also have checklists for contractors to easily upload forms such as W-9 forms, certificates of insurance, without this having to get lost in translation via email, especially for those contracts that might be up for renewal in 3 years. Well, where's the COI? We also have customizable dashboards here where you can come in and track, for example, the city's GASB 89 contracts, fleet contracts, your smaller local businesses that you are contracted with that you can actually report out to the public. So again, you can invite any user in here, but all these reports are also downloadable to, again, display transparently for members of the community to know about. While there's a lot more that goes into all of this, I really just wanted to briefly show you the process of contracting, what that looks like. So there's repositories that are housing and managing all of your project data, your contracting data. But this is really where we help you to not miss any milestones along the way. So it doesn't matter which department a user is in, you can come in here and search for contracts and see a little bit about them. So tell me some summary, what are my renewal options? Oftentimes when it comes to contracts, there's very nuanced notifications someone might need for different departments. Not everyone needs every notification, right? Same thing with the insurances. So on those milestones and the insurance types, they're fully customizable and you can toggle and add on notifications that you want. It doesn't matter if it's days, weeks, months, years in advance. You can add as many of them that you want. Same thing for the insurances that reside down below, and choose which department users and which admin staff are getting these notifications. So not everyone's going to be flooded with emails and emails about everything here.
Do those notifications also go out to contractors saying, hey, your insurance, we need your proof of insurance, it's due in 2 weeks?
Yep, exactly. Okay. Yep. And then you can also create here, Patrick, checklists for other items that you'd want to collect as well, of course, like W-9 forms or other forms that you would want uploaded just for your record. You can come in here, you could select them, approve, send it back, say, hey, we need some changes on this. So again, this isn't happening via email. And then at any time, they could also just upload any document for your approval or rejection for your record that you're able to come in here, filter through by, and actually make public on a public contract records portal if you get a FOIA request or anything like that. Again, because I know public transparency is really important to the city. So this is really contract management overall. We also help to automate the contract build process and solicitation build process to really help cut back time. But again, I know that we only have roughly 4 minutes left here, so I definitely want to save some time for questions and kind of pass things back over to Kevin. But again, biggest takeaway I wanted you to get from this mini demo here, Patrick, I know that I could also talk about this for hours and hours, like Jim and Adam said, but the biggest takeaway is that your entire agency is going to be able to do all purchasing and contracting under one solution. I've seen incredible time savings and cost savings with organizations that I've worked with over the last almost 3 years here at OpenGov. So really just can't emphasize the value of this enough. But would love to answer any questions that you might have for me.
So say I'm a local road guy and I do a contract, I get loaded into the system. So if I go back for another bid, I'm already in there, so that's sufficient. And then the city has my information. And then if new bids are going, we can post, RFPs on this, and then anyone that's in the network gets a notification about the RFP.
Yep, exactly. You're spot on there. Yep. So everything that we're doing, all your projects and contracts are all managed. So we help you to develop them with like all your agency's templates. We'll take them, implement them in the system, and then we'll kick them off and we will create those projects with you, do your approvals, all your routing. We even have some really great like AI workflow tools and like a scope of work library where your staff can come in here, piggyback off of scopes to help cut back time by roughly like 80% of like scope development time, for example. So all of that is not only being built in the system, but it's really saving your staff time, especially if it's like a new project that you all haven't done before. You can come in here and piggyback off of another agency that works with OpenGov today, or utilize our AI enhancements to also be able to automate that process and kind of give you, like a skeleton if you have a little bit of writer's block or you're not sure where to start.
Great. No, it's really cool. It's a great tool. And I would imagine if contractors are in the system, for other municipalities or other OpenGov clients, then they're kind of already familiar with it and it streamlines it there.
Exactly. You can do redlining in here, and yeah, we already have a lot of hundreds of thousands of vendors in the solution. So yeah, I go to a lot of conferences as well as with all my colleagues on this call. So we hear great feedback and take what businesses as well as what you're saying about the solution very seriously for how we're building things out. So
No, it's super cool from a municipal nerd standpoint. It's exciting. So
me
appreciate it.
too. I could sit here all day and talk about this. You have no idea.
No, you're in good company with me and Charlie. So this is great. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is all very exciting.
Absolutely.
Knowing, in my conversations with Charlie and the staff, knowing what the city needs to make our operations, more efficient and cost saving. It seems like we've got some pretty powerful tools here. So this was very helpful. And I'm sure we could talk for a while, but I think I get the gist of it. And at that point, if Charlie feels like it satisfies what he and the staff are looking for, then I'm all for it.
Awesome.
Well, we appreciate your time, Patrick, today, in the middle of the day. I understand your schedules are busy. Obviously, you took the first step, obviously want to meet with us. We really appreciate it. I want to thank Charlie for his time, putting together, the past few months of demonstrations with the team, getting in front of, each of the city team with the respective suites. So we're very excited about the opportunity to partner with the city. Hopefully we get the vote on Monday. We're confident we'll give the ability to the city of Ellsworth to help you guys with your digital transformation. We're not only excited to support your internal groups, but we're also excited to help you guys support the city of Ellsworth and continue to deliver exceptional services. So thank you again for your time. And any other questions, feel free to reach out over the next couple of days. We'd be happy to answer them as we come into Monday here. So
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate it,
Thank
Kevin.
you all.
And
Yeah, of
Jim.
course. Thank you all. Hope to see you all at Sugarloaf sometime this season.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
All right. Perfect.
I'll see
Yeah,
ya.
we'll see you later. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
bye, everyone.